Janet, so great to see you. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me today. We're really excited to have you on the Family Law Professionals Collective and sharing your knowledge and expertise. So if you could just, tell us your name again, and tell us a little bit about your practice and your background.
Sure. So my name's Janet Tighe, and I am a certified financial planner certificate and a certified divorce financial analyst certificate. I've been in the financial industry for a number of years, and I practiced wealth management for over 20 years. But now, over the last year, morphed into just working with divorcing clients. So just using the Certified Divorce Financial Analyst credential to work with individuals who are going through divorce through my firm, which is called Summit Divorce Advisors, and working with them to help them on the financial aspects of their divorce.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I know, as you and I have spoken before, I know that each case and each divorce is unique. From your perspective as a financial advisor, someone that's certified a divorce financial analyst and advisor, what kind of potentially advice would you give someone that's beginning on the journey of divorce through the process? And if you could give them a heads up or anything from a financial perspective.
I think one of the best pieces of advice is that, if one of the spouses is not already familiar with the financial situation of themselves and their family, is use this as an opportunity to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be learning not only, what kind of accounts and assets that you own, what kind of debts there are, but also, what's your budget look like? What is the income? What are the expenses? What does it cost you to live? And that's something that sometimes a lot of people have delegated to another spouse, but in a divorce, now you most likely will be responsible for your own situation. And I see it as that, having this information gives you more knowledge and power to make the best decisions for you and your family going forward. So look at it as an opportunity to learn more and become more self-sufficient if you weren't already.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that happens, I see that happen more often than not, where the challenge really does become the opportunity to become empowered and informed, right?
Yes.
Because financial literacy happens as a result of a seeming crisis.
Yes. And it can be daunting at first,
Mm-hmm.
but, over time, hopefully, starting to learn more will then, translate into that, having that better self-sufficiency and knowledge to help you move forward.
And is that something that you do as the financial advisor role within the team?
So I think, we try to. It depends on how I'm acting. In some cases, I'm acting as a neutral party working with both spouses. And so in that case, I'm trying to help both of them gather. But yes, to the extent that I can help to educate if one party doesn't understand, what's a Roth IRA versus a traditional IRA? What does that mean from a tax perspective? What does that mean going forward? Why is it important to look at retirement accounts differently from non-retirement accounts? So, as a neutral, I can't advise either of them on what's best for them, but I can just help to educate them and show all of the assets and help them both work through how to best split it for their family and what makes sense for them.
Right.
If I'm working with just one of the parties as an advocate, then I can spend more time advocating and saying, well, this is what I think might help you more if you can ask for this or this. So it depends on how I'm working with
Right.
the people who are divorcing.
Yeah, and that segues really well into my next question, which is, I can only imagine, as for my role working with divorcing homeowners, is that each situation is so unique, but it does require a good support team on the divorce team. So what do you recommend to look for in a good financial planner?
So if a person does need help more specifically to help them um, figure out what makes most sense, and this has come up in a couple of cases where I've been a neutral party, but one of the parties is looking at going forward, what's going to help me more. It's hopefully looking for a planner who is not just looking to manage their assets, but looking to help give them guidance as far as a plan moving forward. How can they have sufficient income to cover their expenses, as well as continue to build up for retirement, and if there's children, how to be sure that they have enough things covered. So looking for a planner who is focused on the planning side of things. And sometimes it might be someone who charges an hourly fee. Maybe they don't need ongoing investment advice, but more just planning advice. And so someone who is, a fiduciary and who's not just looking to sell them funds or life insurance, but someone who can help them make plans for what they need going forward.
Yeah. And I think, do you find that there is a real big value add to being having the designation of someone that's certified in divorce financial advisory versus someone maybe that's used to managing assets as a financial planner?
Because I think I think the divorce financial analyst credential kind of focuses on what are some of the unique challenges of looking at divorce, and what are some of the differences that come up in terms of how assets can be split, or what are some of the other ramifications. And so that, focusing on that, and have, continuing education requirements as you go through in order to maintain the credential, make sure that we're keeping up on what are some of the strategies or ideas that, can be given to these people as suggestions that they can consider, to how they can maybe creatively come up with solutions that fit their needs, and not just sort of a standard, here's what the court would order, but, try to be creative. In most of the situations I've been working, it's either a mediation or a collaboratively settled case, not so much litigation. And so they're not going to court, and they're not having a judge rule on how things should be, but trying to come up with solutions that work for their family, that feel better.
Yeah, that planning versus management is so key. I mean, we find that we come up against that with clients coming from the lending side too. It's like there's a difference in a certified divorce lending professional versus a lender, right? Like, we're not looking to take the app. Surely that somewhere down the road that could happen, but it's really about planning and strategizing and getting all the pieces of the puzzle working together, so I think that's so important on the divorce team.
Right. And as I said, in this case, since usually I'm working with people that have chosen not to go to court, that you're trying to help them move into a place where they can, especially if there are children involved, be knowing they're going to have to co-parent as they move ahead, that they are still able to work with one another after this is over, and be in a place where they can feel good about the agreements they've come up with together. And
such a huge distinction. I mean, right? These decisions, these financial decisions, how they, cascade into these kind of long-term, parenting structures. I mean, these are not things that you think about when you're first kind of embarking on this journey. So I think to have that kind of 10,000-foot view from the team members, especially as a financial planner, is just so integral for the success of the family,
Right.
Yeah.
And even in cases where there's adult children, that they aren't worrying about co-parenting plans, but they are still involved in their children's lives, and maybe grandchildren. So they still both want to be in a place where they feel comfortable as they can with each other, and don't feel like either one of them has been shortchanged.
Right. Each time they see that person, they think about the agreement they made.
Right.
I'm sure that's come up. So, and the last question I have for you is, do you have any, like, a particular memorable case? It doesn't have to be huge, but maybe that you've worked on that impacted you personally, or that just stands out to you, and what about it did?
I mean, each one has, slightly different challenges to it. I think, I've seen a couple of cases where there are long-term marriages, 40 years, for example, and this is one I thought of, and they each of the parties were very willing to work together to come up with solutions, but clearly there was still pain in the idea of ending a relationship that was that long. But they each more or less did kind of go out of their way to their intention was to make sure the other party was taken care of, but there were little quirks along the way. And sometimes, I would point out some things to them that, okay, have you thought about this and thought about that? And then they, made some adjustments based on some of the items I pointed out. But, it was sort of helpful for me to see that, there are some people that are trying to do the right thing for each other.
Mm.
Knowing that they've decided that they can't sustain the marriage anymore, but they are trying to make it, and they are willing to be open to hear suggestions of how to make sure it is as fair as can be to each other. And so it really struck me that, that was people can, even though they've decided they can't remain married, they are able to still work together to come up with a really good division and split and equitable both.
Yeah, that's so hopeful, right? I mean, it's like we've spent, in that case, half our lives with one another. That doesn't just drop off, right? Or turn in a different direction. And so I think, again, having that container of a team to be able to kind of
because there is the potential that they could have toxic feelings and all that time down in the past that could have resentment, which it didn't appear to me that they were in that state, that they were trying hard to be in a place where they would not have resentment towards each other after this was done.
Yeah. Well, I love that. And is there any other thing that you wanted to share, or how can people get a hold of you?
Well, people can so it's just I think trying to be open and transparent as you go through the process. Hopefully you're able to, if you are going through a divorce, to work with your spouse to try to do things as equitably as possible, and especially if there's children involved, how to make sure that they are not adversely impacted by your decisions. And they can find me at my website, which is summitdivorceadvisors.com, or through the Oregon Association of Collaborative Professionals, which I'm part of as well, and on their website. That's the best way to find me.
Wonderful. I know your time is so valuable, so I really appreciate it, and I always get something out of our conversation. So thanks again.
Thank you, Manya. It's a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you.
All right.